All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to pull any punches here. These are probably the three worst coins that you could collect today for a few reasons. All right. Some of the things that I want to personally focus on with this particular short little top three list, there's a couple things. Number one, the overall attractiveness and appeal of these coins. People collect what they collect because they really like them. And I'm going to say that each and every single one of these, a lot of people do not personally like. I'm not saying this from personal experience, although, yeah, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to just buy tons of these. But after talking with a number of people over the last number of years about these coins, the consensus is pretty spot on. They just really don't like these coins, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the little quirks and things that they don't like about these coins, and really put it all in one video. So one of the things that we are going to address are the values of these coins, because obviously, if we're going to go out and spend a lot of money collecting into something that we feel like we have a passion for, at the very least, you got to have something coming back to you, right? There's no worse feeling than going out there, spending a $50 bill on something only to get maybe $20 in returns back from something like that, right? I mean, we see it all the time in just good old basic everyday commerce, right? We buy an item, we open it up, and now it's worth just a mere fraction of what it was brand new. Coins, we could say, put it, right up high on the list of investables. This is an asset class to a lot of people. People build portfolios of these things, and people do precious metals. I'm happy to say that precious metals makes up a very small part of this list as the reason why you should not collect it. But if you guys are going to go out there, you're going to spend your hard-earned money, you really need to think about and consider not only your base needs and desires for what you want to collect, but ultimately we're all going to sell these later on down the road. Something's going to happen. Either we're going to lose interest in coins, we're going to lose interest in that series, and maybe we want to do something else. But there's always going to be customers that's going to be looking to buy coins. Now, will they buy the coins that you want to collect that's on this top three list? That's really up to you guys. But I'm going to throw out here three, probably the worst from a design perspective, from a value perspective, and from an overall long-term investability perspective. These are probably the three worst things that you could collect into in U.S. coinage today. So we're going to start it off. Again, like I said, I'm not pulling any punches. The presidential dollar series of coins is a strong front runner to this list. One of the big things that really beat this series down was it was coming off the heels of a very successful statehood quarter series program. As you guys know, the U.S. Mint pushed out this unbelievable 10-year series that spanned from 1999 to 2009. They even added a territory year with DC and stuff on there. But they wanted to build off of this new composition that they were using on the dollar coins. In 1999, they transitioned over from this copper nickel clad composition that we saw in the Susan B. Anthony dollar. You might as well just lump that in to this list. That's another coin that me personally, I wouldn't even waste my time collecting into. As a matter of fact, I probably have one sitting somewhere around here, and I'm willing to bet it'll end up in the bank one day. But they had changed the composition because the coins look too much like a standard U.S. quarter as far as size is concerned. So they went with a manganese alloy. And that's why they right out of the gate, they were referred to as the golden dollar, right? The Sacagawea dollars, as you guys know, had a little popularity contest going for it when it first released in the year 2000. It was a considerable improvement over the Susan B. Anthony, and people really did love them. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of where it ends. You know, from about 2000, I would say 2002 onward, any of these dollar coins in this manganese alloy has been straight up trash. Sure, I mean, they have $1 of buying power. Okay, I'll give you that. But, you know, um, these series have been a huge, tremendous letdown, um, in that they offer really nothing superb. All right. And first and second of all, who wants to have a whole pocket full of these gold dollar coins that'll weigh down your pocket? You know, and that's the reason why Morgans and peace dollars, you know, stopped circulating, because paper money was being used a lot more. Well, guess what, guys? Paper money is still being used today, and digital payments are a big thing that's really hampering on the much larger denomination coins. And that's why Kennedy half dollars gets absolutely no love out there in circulation today. So when we look at these prices, okay, I mean, we have a full 80 coin set. There were a few years that the US Mint were producing these presidential dollar coins intended for circulation. And then after a certain time period, they stopped doing that because of waning popularity. All right. And that's kind of like one of the red flags as well when you're out there trying to collect into something. If you're aware of the backstory, the history of the series, then that's going to help you guys a lot in determining if that's something that maybe you should probably keep your hands off of. The whole thing with the presidential dollar series is that it kicked off all right. You know, people were interested. Through the first, I would say, 2 to 3 years, there was just regular general interest. People were putting together sets. These companies like Whitman and Dansko and a few others had albums and folders dedicated to this series. So people were invested, companies were invested. And then we got to around 2010, 2011, the US Mint's like, why are we producing these? They're not being spent in circulation. People have already forgotten about them. And to make matters worse, when you look at the designs of the coins, I mean, I'm all for just collecting a set of coins that have presidents on them. I think that's pretty cool, but they didn't execute on these all too well. A lot of the coins that a lot of people have said looked a little bit too, I don't know. I've heard claymation. I've heard spooky ghost eyes was another one. It's just there's not enough detail. And good old Thomas Jefferson here should have many more wrinkles at this point, and other things. They just really did not do a good job with the execution of the design of these coins. Just putting, you know, their bust on there, writing Thomas Jefferson and third president, really was a huge letdown. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people had said, well, why didn't on the reverse, you know, as opposed to putting Statue of Liberty, which is a great symbol. I mean, they could have done this with the first year of the series. Why didn't they put another design on the reverse that signifies early Americana or history? Maybe something that had something to do with Thomas Jefferson's history or something to that effect. I've heard a bunch of things. But this is the standard kind of coin. It's got the edge lettering and all that great stuff that at first, you know, people were really cool and interested in, and people were finding errors and varieties and all that great stuff. And there's really not a whole lot to hang your hat on. You know, a double edge lettering John Adams, you know, can only go so far. Those coins can be had for under $20 today. So they've really dropped in price. But that's also kind of a testament of the direction of this series. There's just really no love affair for these anymore, you know, from a design perspective, from a value perspective. I mean, shoot, when you look at these things, guys, and you're seeing that $70 face value in these coins, you know, are selling for right around $100, you know, by the time you factor in fees, I mean, you're probably going to make $10 off that, and then you're looking at graded examples that are selling for a few bucks. JFK presidential dollar coin roll, Philadelphia Mint. This is one of the NIFCs, which that's another thing. The U.S. Mint had decided, you know what, these things are just not really popular. We're going to shut off the faucet and not make these for circulation any longer. We're going to do NIFC, which stands for not intended for circulation. And then ultimately, that was kind of the end of that. The people, the hardcore collectors of the series, had to buy these from the U.S. Mint after like 2012 or something like that. And that was it. That was kind of like the death blow to the series. And as you can see, this is nothing that you're going to make a boatload of money on. You're really not. And if you did sell them, God bless your heart. I mean, where you're going to have the most amount of value are going to be in the sealed rolls of NIFCs, like this Woodrow Wilson, which is a scarce one. But if you crack open these rolls and you're filling up albums, that pretty much kills the value in these. So, I mean, if you want to collect these, I'm not going to stop you. Not at all. This is not a bash on anyone, because they're collecting this series. But there are other worthwhile series that you could collect into that's going to provide a whole lot more satisfaction. I mean, the America the Beautiful series was going on during the same time as well. And that, in essence, is a kind of better investment and a better collecting direction rather than this series, which is going to offer no long-term positive movement in the market. So that's the presidential dollars. Would love to hear your thoughts, of course. I mean, so some of you are going to say, well, I do collect into that and I enjoy it. And, that's cool. That's all well and good. But I have to throw out my reasoning based off of the overall community and what they've said about these coins. The second one is commemoratives, but not all of them. The commemoratives that you probably want to stay away from are the modern silverclad 1982 to current dated commemoratives. All right. So, just go ahead and look through some of these here. It's a lot of kind of like wartime kind of topics that we're seeing on a lot of these coins. A lot of that sort of thing. Like there's the Korean War one here. There's the Civil War one here. Statue of Liberty. There's a lot of like patriotism. The basketball coin is actually kind of neat. If you're into that, then that'd be one of like my top picks. You have a Marine Corps, Lewis and Clark. I mean, you kind of see where I'm getting at here, right? In comparison to the early classic commemoratives, where the U.S. Mint, number one, enlisted the aid of outside artists to create art for the series, which they did not do here. These are all in-house artists. They have to come up with a subject, and then they have to pass it through legislature, and then it gets created. They make plasters and they do concept art and all that stuff. But in comparison to the earlier stuff, where they did a lot of classic commemoratives that revolve around kind of like state-specific events, like the York County commemorative, the Battle of Antietam commemorative is another big one that people love, and those things are very expensive even to this day. But when we go back and we look at these more modern commemoratives, they're just generic. It's like they slapped on some of the like top 10% most recognizable U.S. Historical events, and they slapped it onto a coin, and that was it. And it's easy to see why that these things are pretty lackluster. The designs are neat on a few of them. The Smithsonian I personally like. But take a look at the valuations on a lot of these. Like this Statue of Liberty silver and clad two-piece Prue set, it wasn't always $17, ladies and gentlemen. This set right here At one point, about 20, 25 years ago, they were selling for like $30. All right. So, yeah, the values on a vast majority of these, like here's another Thomas Jefferson, another dead president centric design that they've put on there, $21. I mean, they're getting more affordable, but do you really want to sock all of your efforts and your money into something like this where the overall interest isn't going to blow anyone away? And then when you go to resell these things, coin dealers crush owners of these coins. I was talking with a buddy of mine in town, a dealer, and I was kind of curious. I'm like, hey, what are you paying for silver commemoratives, like moderns? He's like, oh yeah, we're paying like 30-40% behind gray sheet, ask or something like that, something ridiculous. So essentially, yeah, you could sell for $25 here online on eBay, but the coin dealers are paying like $10 for these things. It's so crazy, and that's and he even mentioned that I have a hard time selling these. He actually cracked open his safe and showed me probably about 80 to 100 of these that he's bought over the last 2 years that he cannot get rid of for any reason. He could do a dealer trade or something like that, but he's a get reamed on this stuff. But this one is more on the list for two reasons. Number one, obviously the value is just toast in modern commemoratives. You'd go onto the US Mint website, you'd buy these things for like $40-50, and then a year later you go to sell them, they're worth half that. And then of course there's that other, underlying issue of just it being like a top 10 historical kind of like thing that they slapped onto the coin. And some of the designs are they're just indifferent to a lot of people. It's not something that's like super high detailed, and it's not going to blow you away. And the whole kind of like fool's gold in all of this is the proof coins in all of this, ladies and gentlemen. For some people that have never seen proof coins with the highly frosted devices and the mirrored fields, I mean, shoot, they look like a gorgeous coin. But when you've been in the business for as long as I have, since the mid-90s, these things are just like they're all over the place, okay? And speaking of proof coins, our number 3 coin that probably you guys want to avoid are some of the more modern clad proof sets. I mean, seriously, do we need an introduction as to why? This listing right here is a microcosm as to why you should not put a lot of time, effort, and money into obtaining these, because the values are straight up garbage. If you guys didn't catch my video from the other day, what did I say? What did I talk about? What did I report on? The US Mint is increasing prices across the board on a lot of their 2023 more popular products. One of those is the clad proof set. It went from like $24 to $30, if I'm not mistaken. A $6 bump. Keep that in mind. Take a look at this one. 1999S US proof set. You see how much it's sold for, ladies and gentlemen? That is a complete set. 1999, the first year of the statehood quarter program. That should be a special set, right? Based off of that alone. How special is it? $3.51 special. 5 bits. This thing was organically bid up, guys, to that price level. They do sell silver proof sets, which has this kind of like red insert. Those are neat. But you got to be very careful, because some of the newer ones are 999 fine silver quarters and candy half dollars. Those ones still command quite a bit of a premium. So you want to be careful. But for the most part, the clad quarters, like here's a two Washington quarter proof set, lot of 2. 2004S and 2005S. Look at that. $5.50. Talk about inexpensive. It's inexpensive for a reason. There's just not enough interest to augment the value and the desirability for these coins. As good looking as they are copper nickel clad. They are not silver. And that's really one of the things that's really depressed these coins, is that the US Mint continually increases the prices of these proof sets. And then at the end of the day, 6 months, a year later down the road, if you guys sell them, they're worth nothing. It's an absolute worst investment that you could actually put your money into. You know, you could actually hear a toilet flushing when you're actively searching these things. If you go to a coin shop, they're not selling it for $3 a pop. You go in there and they have these sets. They're like, yeah, sure, it's $8 or $10. You're paying whatever the retail price is for a coin dealer. But when you go to resell it yourself, or you resell it, you know, and here's the funny thing. When you go to a coin shop to sell these, they only give you face value. They barely give you anything for these. So I stay away from clad proof sets from really a value proposition. It's just not that worth it. When you could buy them in quantity at about $2.50 to $3 per piece, that says a lot, guys. So this one is my third worst coin that you guys need to collect or stay away from. You got to avoid all of these if you can absolutely help it. If you care about value, you would avoid all three of these. But that's what I wanted to talk about. I want to thank you guys for tuning in on this video. Hopefully I wasn't too hard on some of you that do collect these. There's some of them that are affordable, and I think that's the redeeming thing about it. But don't buy them expecting to turn up a huge profit 10 years from now. Because here we are, some of these sets and coins that were made 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago are worth a lot less now than they ever have been. We're in the midst of a very healthy coin market today. So that's it. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Hopefully you guys had a good time on this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. And come check me out on TikTok at Blue Ridge Silverhound. So I'm going to talk to you guys later. Enjoy the hobby, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.